Hello, Pokemon trainers. Happy Sunday for the Victory Road World Cup of Pokemon VGC, sponsored by Gigi Tour, Elgato, and Metafi. My name is Mabel Rourke. I am so excited to start off the day with Evan Wang. And Evan, none of our matches yet today have already been decided yet.
Yeah, so this is the top eight, right, of our World Cup, and all four matchups are still not concluded. There are three of them that went that have scores like 3-1 or 3-2, but this is so exciting. Everything is now on the line, and I'm excited to say that all our matches that we feature, right, they do matter. Like back then in our qualifier stage and group stage, there were so many matches going on, and it's a bit difficult to give summaries to you guys. But today, yeah, we already narrow all the teams down to top eight, and we can kind of give you guys the results, like the result breakdown going into today's stream matches.
Yes, absolutely right. And, if you guys are following along, and you should be, there are a lot of great ways to do it for these matches, especially if you check out all of our social medias. Again, you can find us on Twitter, on YouTube, Discord, the Twitch if you're watching right now. We are so thankful that you are currently here with us. And all of this information that we will be showing is available on worldcupvgc.com, which means there are also ways that you guys can keep track with us in between streams to see how the teams are doing. And we had a couple of different results come in between yesterday's stream and today, which I think is going to make today's top 8 matches that we're going to be featuring incredibly important. If you want to take a hop over as well to the bracket for the day as well, so we can kind of see what our top 8 is currently looking like. It's still similar to what we saw yesterday, right? Canada versus India, Australia versus South Korea, United States versus France, and Poland versus Thailand. And again, Evan, none of these are decided. This is like the most exciting Sunday I think we've gotten to cast so far.
Yeah, exactly. So the match that we featured last yesterday in our Saturday stream was Australia versus South Korea, and today we're bringing two more Australia versus South Korea matches, but two matches have already been played. So Australia is now up 3-2 against South Korea, and moving up clockwise in the bracket, we have Canada 3-1 over India, and then United States 2-2 against France. So this is the most even matchup right now. And finally, at the corner, Thailand is actually up 3-1 against Poland, a very strong start. So we'll be bringing you guys matches from one of each, like from all four matchups today, and it'll be very exciting. Can't wait to show you guys all the matches we have.
Yeah, if we want to peek on over just to the matches so you guys can see exactly what is in store for all of you, we will be starting with a doubleheader between South Korea and Australia. And again, from what I spoke about yesterday, both of these teams, right? South Korea trying to sneak back into top 4 where they ended up last year. Australia did not make it out of that very first group stage in last year's World Cup, losing to the United States and New Zealand. However, getting all the way up into top 8 is a huge improvement over last year, and they still have plenty more that they want to prove. And then we'll be moving on for our third match of the day between Canada and India, fourth between the United States and France, and our last match will be between Thailand and Poland. And again, like you said, we've already seen 5 of the matches out of the 7 matches for Australia and South Korea. So at least by the end of both of these 2 matches, we will have our result as to who is moving on into that top 4.
Yeah, this is so crazy. Like, it's so sad to say that one of these teams are going home. These two teams have been so strong and dominant throughout the competition. Like, Australia had to play 7 weeks to get all the way here, and it's just been doing so well in this top cut bracket. It's also interesting that we are going in a clockwise direction in the bracket, so we totally get to show you guys all the stories of these matchups all throughout the day, and hopefully end off the day with maybe all top 4 teams confirmed. We are not sure yet, and then it could be nice, to like discuss amongst ourselves casters like what our predictions are, because we're already left with just 4 teams. One of them is definitely going to win the World Cup and also win that money.
Yeah, I know that you and I yesterday before our stream started, we had a couple of little predictions. I'm doing okay so far. I'm not too far off on my predictions, so I'm feeling pretty confident about it. The only one of these matches on our today's schedule that isn't a match point is between France and the United States. So we will be checking throughout the day as well on the World Cup website to see if any of those results get updated. And if we do get those, we can bring them to you as we have them. But If we want to take a look right now between the match preview between South Korea and Australia, see what these teams have been using. We saw it yesterday. Megan Rattle and Mitch Kendrick both were able to post their results, and there was originally 1-2 between Australia and South Korea. Having gotten 2 wins with a team composition that Megan used something very similar to that Yveltal Kyoger in her 2019 top 8 result. Really interesting to see both her and Mitch use something with that same core, especially when you're in the face of a team like South Korea, who you can tell is not afraid to use those big, strong electric types like Regieleki, Zapdos, and Thundurus.
Speaking of Yveltal and Kyogre, this core that these two Australian players use, we saw it in action yesterday, used by Niels Dunlop. That was his Worlds team, and it was like a physical Yveltal with Ancient Power Kyogre, so things can get really wild, right? Yeah, and it's so interesting to see them use and manage to trump over their opponents. And their opponents, had their own fair share of electric types like the Regieleki and the Thundurus, both very threatening towards Yveltal and Kyogre, but interesting to see them manage to eke out those wins. The game seemed so close. They went to 3 games.
Yeah, that was a super fun one, and that definitely shows the advantages and disadvantages of playing in a team format, because that was between the United States and France is really well known for being a Shedinja team. And so the United States team, Nils had a couple of different fun techs, and you have to imagine too that Christopher Khan and Wonseok Jang, who are going to be our first match of the day, have some interesting techs for each other as well. Both of these players are incredibly accomplished. Christopher Khan coming from a big Pokemon family, his brother just getting second at the World Championships, and he definitely has been team building. But Christopher Khan has plenty of accomplishments of his own. The 2017 North American International Champion, Germany Nationals top 16 in 2013, 3 times regional champion, 4-time World Day 2 competitor. A lot of long storied experience for him. But right next door on this other side of the screen, Wonseok Jang, his earliest result, 2012 Korea national champion. So both of these players have been playing for a very long time. Trainers Cup finalist in 2020, which is, I believe, close to their nationals, right, Evan, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep.
Yep, and then the 2017 World Championships top 16, 2016 World Championships top cut. So both of these players are incredibly talented. Probably the, 2 of the most stacked rosters between South Korea and Australia. All of the players on both teams have so many accomplishments and accolades to their names.
Yeah, so not just these accomplishments in live events. Wonseok is like the returning manager for Korea. Last year led Korea to a top 4 finish, and he's actually currently having a record of 4-0. Last year's his record was also 6-2 and was one of the best players in Korea. So a very good leader coming out from this country. And Christopher Khan, his World Cup 2022 record has been really good so far as well. 5-0 and then 2-5-1. So he lost, I think, 2 weeks ago, if I'm not wrong. And he's been consistently using Zacian, Kyogre, Whimsicott, Shedinja, and Clefairy. So he's also one of those Shedinja users. And we do see a Shedinja team in front of us. Like, he's also bringing it to this matchup, even though you might think that the South Koreans could scout him based on the teams that he used throughout this World Cup season.
I believe, Evan, actually, there might just be one quick error that Whimsicott on Christopher Khan's side has actually been replaced with an Incineroar, which is a really interesting team change for today. He's been running the Whimsicott quite often on this team, but instead I think made a change, especially when you're facing down something like that Calyrex Shadow Rider on the opposite side of the field for Wonseok, who is also running alongside it that Groudon, Incineroar, Thundurus, Gastrodon, and Venusaur. This is the same team that was used by, the same 6 that was used by James Evans to win North American International. But Christopher Khan's team as well, this is something he has been using for 6 weeks of competition. So definitely something he is familiar with. Oh, it is a Whimsicott? Thank you so much, sorry. So it is actually a Whimsicott this time instead of the Incineroar, but it is still a team that he has been using quite a lot, actually, throughout, I think, almost like you said, every single week of competition.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see like an Incineroar or a Whimsicott on that slot, but Christopher has been kind of using this Whimsicott over the Incineroar all throughout. It's very interesting because the Incineroar version would be what we commonly call as French Rain, right? With Incineroar as support, and also like the Thundurus being the prankster variant to be able to help the team out and allow Zacian and Kyogre to do a lot of damage. Yeah, so we have confirmation that it is the Whimsicott, and I'm very interested to see how Christopher actually uses this, because he's been using this team all season long for Series 12, and he should be really comfortable with it. And once again, like Maeve will be talking about Whimsicott again going into the game, and I'm curious to see whether it comes, especially when there is a Gastrodon on the opposing end used by Wonseok.
Yeah, I mean, it is my favorite Pokemon, so I really cannot complain. And the
Right.
amount of times I get to talk about Whimsicott and all of the fun things that it does is really great for me. However, when you pair it with something like this Shedinja, we got to see a lot of really interesting Shedinja play from the French team yesterday. So I'm excited to see exactly how Christopher Kahn is going to pilot it. If it is something that even wants to come to this matchup, you know, facing against something like a Calyrex, you can do a lot of damage with a Shadow Sneak, but you also may threaten something like an Astral Barrage in return. However, from Christopher, we will be seeing the Zacian and the Thunderous, and from Wonseok Jang, it is that Calyrex, Shadow Rider, and Incineroar. So an Intimidate is great onto this Zacian, however, not exactly a great lead to put on in front of something like a Thunderous right out of the gate, especially if it is carrying that Defiant.
So Incineroar goes for the Intimidate here, and we will get to see whether the Thunderous is the Defiant variant or not. Because
It is
commonly,
not.
yeah, it is not, right? Because commonly in the French Rain team, the Thunderous does come to help with Prankster support, with moves like Eerie Impulse that could be useful in front of this Calyrex, or maybe even Thunder Wave that we might see. This Calyrex is in a good position, I guess, to go for like Will-O-Wisp or just some damage, but it does have to be very aware of the Eerie Impulse coming out, and Incineroar does prevent that with that Fake Out.
Yeah, Fake Out, meaning that this Will-O-Wisp into the Zacian is going to be great at this moment to stop something like that Zacian from getting too powerful going on, especially now that it's already at neutral thanks to the Intimidate. Behemoth Blade from the Zacian, though, is going to go off right into that Calyrex on the opposite side of the field. Calyrex looking pretty good here thanks to that burn and the Intimidate already, not even taken down to half of its health, so it's going to need at least 2 more Behemoth Blades, even if this Thunderous is able to go for something like an Eerie Impulse and slow down the special attack output of this Calyrex. It still also has the option to even go for something like a Tailwind and allow the Zacian to maybe go first if the Thunderous wants to try and get some extra damage off maybe later if it swaps something out. It does have the opportunity as well to maybe go for something like a Volt Switch instead. Sometimes they do carry that as that extra move, but Calyrex this turn deciding to be pretty safe and going for a Protect. So that Thunderous, I believe that was that Eerie Impulse, does not go off into the Calyrex. Zacian this turn going for that Sacred Sword into the Incineroar does connect, but really you can see immediately how much pressure is put on. But a Taunt is a really great move from Incineroar to put a stop to those Prankster Thunderous.
Wow, what a good lead coming out from Wonseok, being able to control both the Pokemon in terms of the Will-O-Wisp on the Zacian and also the Taunt. A very interesting move coming out from the Incineroar onto that Thunderous, and just kind of render Thunderous useless and also allow the Calyrex to fire off full-powered Astral Barrages, not being worried of that Eerie Impulse. I think the Calyrex is just a very useful Pokemon in general, like in the whole of Series 12, the way we saw Edu pilot it all the way to a first place finish, and at the same time, like, this team composition was used by James Evans, and it just shows how flexible Calyrex is. You provide nerfs in terms of Will-O-Wisp and also can dish out so much spread damage. So here comes another Sacred Sword into the Incineroar. Both players not switching out much.
Yeah, the Gastrodon does switch in though here, and that is going to be really great to stop something like an electric type attack from that Thunderous. Thunderous, though, I believe able to go. I'm not exactly sure what it did. Struggle. That's what it was. Okay, because it had no other option. So clearly, it's showing that it is using all 4 of its moves for help actions there instead of some sort of offensive pressure, which is a really nice piece of information to know now. And it makes this Thunderous probably not want to come into that next game. Incineroar's Parting Shot, though, able to switch out and bring this Calyrex back in a position where it is really comfortable. You got a great support from the Gastrodon to go for something like an Earth Power. Thunderous cannot do anything right now except for hurt itself.
But Christopher was kind of smart enough not to switch the Thunderous out so easily, and then the Thunderous was the Pokemon that ate up that Parting Shot from the Incineroar. But now, things get dangerous since Wonseok was able to do some kind of pivoting by bringing the Gastrodon in on one side and then quickly bringing the Calyrex in again. And now, not fearing any Eerie Impulses again, I guess the Calyrex is able to just go for Astral Barrage and do so much damage.
Yeah, that Astral Barrage will be a knockout on both of those Pokemon on the next turn, especially because this Behemoth Blade cannot get the knockout onto that Calyrex. Thundurus once again will struggle into this Calyrex. It does so little damage and knocks the Thundurus out. So honestly, knocking your own Thundurus out before you can allow a Grenade boost on the opposite side is really useful here. Gastrodon, though, looks like it went for, God, was that an Earth Power that missed there?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
No,
it might have went for Yawn. Yeah, it might have went for
Yawn.
Yawn into the Thunderous slot, but since the Thunderous went down, then the Yawn will not affect the Zacian, since the Zacian is already inflicted by a status like Will-O-Wisp. So covering a lot of options there, with the Calyrex always being the fastest Pokemon on the field, dishing out damage, and at the same time Gastrodon being the most bulky to be able to control the opposing team by going for Yawns and kind of force them to keep switching. So Christopher, if the Kyogre is in the back, it's so difficult to bring the Kyogre out right now and take unnecessary damage from the Calyrex, but forces to have to switch in the Katana here, and if the Katana doesn't hold an Assault Vest, it's still going to take so much damage from the Calyrex. Calyrex also has options to go for Will-O-Wisp into the Katana as well, but at the risk of missing, so Wonseok still has to play pretty carefully.
Yeah, I mean, if you're this Gastrodon, right, you're probably not super happy to be sitting in front of something that can max Overgrowth you, especially when that's your big answer to the Kyogre on the opposite side. But bringing in Incineroar, getting another Intimidate down onto this Zacian that has really just become something that cannot do a lot of damage here. Kartana as well, getting that Intimidate, not going for something like a Dynamax this turn either. Behemoth Blade into this Incineroar, really doing... That did so little damage thanks to those Intimidates and that burn. Kartana this turn going for a Leaf Blade into the Incineroar, so a really nice switch here. You're keeping your Gastrodon safe. Gastrodon able to go for a Yawn onto the Kartana as well. So this Kartana not going to want to go for something like a Dynamax on that next turn that it may have really tried to go for.
Well, there are two things that Christopher is doing. Like he's trying to use the Zacian to do as much cheap damage as possible, and then kind of preventing the last Pokemon in the back to take unnecessary damage, so keeps chipping at the Calyrex slot since the Calyrex was low just now. But Wonseok did such a good switch into the Incineroar, being able to soak up that damage and at the same time intimidate both the physical attackers on the opposing side, and the Gastrodon not being afraid, right, of taking something like a Leaf Blade from the Katana, gets that free Yawn off, and has so much value for Wonseok on this turn.
Yeah, and it does also give Wonseok, right? We know that he's got that Groudon in the back, but that's going to allow Groudon to maybe come in and be more comfortable if need be, especially if the Kartana switches out for something like the Kyogre if it needs to. Then you can change the weather and you'll be moving slower, so your weather will be the one that does stick around. You have a powerful Flare Blitz option if you need to into that Zacian, which is already not doing enough that I don't think you have to worry. But Fake Out into the Zacian is going to stop anything else from coming out here. Gastrodon able to go for another Yawn. You're in a great position to just keep yawning into that left slot. You are either going to put something to sleep, or Christopher is going to be stuck in basically a merry-go-round of sending in Pokemon that keep getting yawned.
This is an interesting position for the Kyogre actually, and interesting that Wonseok went for Yawn instead of the straight KO onto the Zacian, since he already covered that by using Fake Out with the Incineroar into that slot, because right now there could be a chance that Kyogre goes for that Max Lightning into the Incineroar slot, knowing that it could be an Incineroar or Calyrex in the back. But we still don't know that, Christopher still doesn't know that Groudon is in the back. He seems to be very aware of this and then switches the Kyogre out, not wanting it to go to sleep, as Wonseok finally reveals his last Pokemon to be Groudon. So in front of a team with Groudon and Gastrodon, these kind of teams with Calyrex Shadow, or even the Zacian teams with what we call Rinya-san, you don't want to freely go for Max Lightning into any slot, since double ground types might be on the field.
Yeah, another Yawn into this Kartana. Christopher having a really tough time trying to break through. Also, a Play Rough from the Zacian into the Groudon did very little damage, right? Christopher may just want his Zacian to go down here just to get his own Kyogre in and get that rain up, but if he does, then he can't change the rain again. So maybe if you want to switch out your Zacian, get in the Kyogre just to prevent some really strong fire type attacks from doing as much damage into your Kartana possibly, but then even still then you're at the risk for that yawn to go off. You can at least send your Zacian in later and maybe just take a hit or cycle it in for something that would have been yawned on the left hand side of the field and on our perspective. But Wonseok now going for his own Dynamax, so it looks like there is no switches this turn, and that Dynamax Groudon, I think at this point it doesn't really need to worry too much about the rain if it comes out, because it's not exactly going for a Max Flare if it doesn't need to, but because there's no switches, you still have a great opportunity to go for that into the Kartana. A Max Quake would be a great way as well to make this Kyogre have a way tougher time on the field to put out damage, even with that Gastrodon on the opposite end. Behemoth Blade from the Zacian going to be doing a good chunk of damage, even with all those Intimidates into this Groudon. You know what? I lied. That did very little damage. This poor Zacian is just sitting out here and not able to do a whole lot. Kartana's Leaf Blade into the Gastrodon is enough to get that full knockout, though, making this Kyogre in the back for Christopher possibly more comfortable. He is playing slower to this endgame, knowing that this Kartana, even with a Beast Boost, is going to be falling asleep at the end of this turn. Groudon going for the Max Quake, though, is still going to be able to help do a bunch of damage onto the Kartana. Not enough to get a full knockout, however, but you're getting a great special defense boost to deal with something like that Kyogre that's going to come in maybe after one more turn of burn from this Zacian. Kartana being asleep at this point, too. This is truly Precipice Blade's best friend, but most importantly, it's Calyrex's best friend, who can go for something like an Astral Barrage and get a double boost.
Yeah, perfect positioning and perfect play coming out from Wonseok. Like, you can let that Gastrodon go down because you can keep pressuring that yawn onto the Katana slot if the Katana leaves the field for the Kyogre. And Max Quick from the Groudon is just so safe. Why would you risk going for Precipice Blades that can miss when you can immediately activate that Dynamax on the Groudon and goes for Max Quick safely into all those slots, since you know that Thundurus is already not on the field. Zacian protecting here is just a bit weird, but it does make sense. Like, you just want that Zacian to go down due to that last chip damage from Will-O-Wisp.
Yeah, from that Will-O-Wisp, instead of getting a +2 to that special attack for that Calyrex. Kartana, though, taking that small amount of damage will still be enough. Of course, that Calyrex, at least now at that +1 special attack, it's going to be moving faster than any Pokemon on Christopher Khan's side of the field, so it's great to have that extra amount of damage output for those next turns. Max Quake through the Protect, plenty enough damage as well to get that knockout, allowing that Zacian to go down on your turns instead of its own turns. So at this point, you're getting another special defense boost. You probably had a free target just by targeting into that Kartana anyway, but at this point as well, then you're at least ensuring that you can get a boost, which is kind of nice, maybe assuming for a Protect there, because then you're not wasting something like a Max turn. Kyogre coming in will change the weather up, but it's not looking too happy, Evan.
Yeah, it's what a strange situation to be in. You don't want the Calyrex Shadow to get a special attack boost, but by protecting, you allow the Groudon with his partner to get the special defense boost. So very tough situation, but Christopher really just trying his best. Got a lot of information really from like having like he's seen the Will-O-Wisp on the Calyrex Shadow. He also saw the Taunt on the Incineroar, so can go back to the drawing board and play differently. But from this first game, you can see that he's just trying to get as much information as possible by playing so patiently, and finally coming to this position where he finally gets to Dynamax his Kyogre.
Yeah, Kyogre at this point, the Dynamax is truly its best friend here. Getting a Max Guard up as well just to stall out this last turn of Dynamax and damage from this Calyrex from its Astral Barrage. At this point too, Groudon's not getting that third special defense boost that I'm sure it would love to have. Calyrex not really too worried because it's at such low HP, but the special defense boost is more for this Groudon than for anything else, right? And at this point, you can just get your damage off with the Astral Barrage. You're not going to be able, I think, to get a full knockout even at +1 with this Kyogre because they can be so tough to deal with. And you're forcing this Groudon into a position where it has to go for something that may not be able to be full accuracy. Max Geyser in the rain, though, with a +2 special defense boosted into this Calyrex is enough to get that knockout. You're not targeting into the Groudon yet, because if this Groudon is going for something like a Precipice Blades that is not fully 100% accurate, then maybe your best bet is to try and get damage off. Precipice Blades look like it misses this turn, which is a huge boon for this Kyogre. Instead, we're going to have to come in here, cannot go for something like that Fake Out. Also, that Kyogre revealed that it had a Life Orb as its item.
Oh, what a strong Kyogre, like and saving it all the way to the end, right? Not revealing it at all. So useful for Christopher. And that Max Guard just helped, with not like allowing the Kyogre to take so much damage from the Cataracts Shadow. So going for the Cataracts Shadow that has already shown Protect, I think that's a very good move since it's already low health. So here comes another Geyser into the Groudon, is able to take it out, and all of a sudden, yeah, Chris is in such a commanding position. Like, this Incineroar is really just a sitting duck here. Even if it goes for Parting Shot, which he's doing now, yeah, how can it like survive any of Kyogre's moves for the next turn?
Yeah, right. I think this Kyogre has a really comfortable Water Spout now that it's out of its Dynamax. You are still at enough HP that I think even with this special attack drop from that, you are able to get that knockout. And what a great end game plan from Christopher Kahn here. Just preserving his Kyogre in the back. You get that big threat of that Gastrodon off of the field early, and now Kyogre can still come in and can get that big damage that it needs to. You've put yourself in a position where there are two low HP Pokemon and a Groudon. Groudon not wanting to take that damage as well from a Max Geyser. I don't believe we saw and confirmed that it was the Assault Vest variant on that Groudon, especially because of how much damage that did with those +2 special defense boosts there. But, you know, I think at that point, right, that just is such a funky end game because, you know, it looked so dominant from Wonseok's side for so long. And then, you know, I think Christopher Kahn just played so patiently towards the end, even without the use of his Thundurus, like, you know, right? Like, I think he may want to end up bringing something like his own Incineroar maybe instead of the Thundurus and just have some extra Intimidate options onto the opposite side of the field.
The most, like, pivotal turn that happened was the Katana not calling the bluff and then going straight for the Leaf Blade. I think it was at -1, but still securing that KO on the Gastrodon, since like Christopher kind of knew that Wonseok's style of play was to keep going for Yawn on that side, and on that very turn he calls it, gets rid of the Gastrodon, and that's it. It's Kyogre's turn to play, right? And Kyogre just came in, went for that first Max Guard to prevent itself from soaking up damage, and in the end, you know that Incineroar and the Cataracts Shadow are both low health, and both Incineroar and Groudon are weak to water. So, wow, what an amazing game played by Christopher, and just a well-deserved win in this first game one.
Calyrex Incineroar versus the Thundurus and Kyogre. So similar to what we saw in game one. One thing that was also really impressive to me from Christopher was preserving his Dynamax literally until the last second, right?
Yeah.
He didn't feel the need to go for a Dynamax with his Kartana, which sometimes when you've got it out on the field, especially in front of a Gastrodon, a Max Overgrowth seems like a really comfy play to make, but he did not fall to that pressure, and he said, I know that what's going to win me this game is preserving my Kyogre at full HP with a Dynamax at the end game because it can 1v3 most of Wonseok's team. At this point, though, Incineroar is still in a great position to go for something like a Taunt, but if you want to go for a Fake Out into a Kyogre, get something like an Astral Barrage off, just try and mitigate the damage from something like a Water Spout early on. But Wonseok is going for his own Dynamax here first off, and this Calyrex may exactly need that just to deal with some of this big damage.
Yeah, so you already know that Calyrex has the Will-O-Wisp move. We don't know whether it has Snarl or not, but Wonseok is using Calyrex in such an interesting way now, going straight for Dynamax and dishing out damage. I think this makes sense. Incineroar is going to go for the Fake Out to prevent that Eerie Impulse, and the Calyrex aims to, that was a critical hit, so not sure if it matters since this Max Mindstorm is actually going into the Kyogre. That's interesting. And Kyogre being just really bulky, we know it has the Life Orb, still able to soak up all that damage, and now Kyogre will be able to dish off this Origin Pulse, if I'm not wrong, because if it's Water Spout, it might not have taken the Incineroar down. And with this, strange gambit of a Dynamax, Wonseok just lets his Incineroar go down like that. So yeah, I'm not sure why he aimed to Dynamax on this turn and not take out the Thundurus, because the Thundurus still threatens that Eerie Impulse onto the Calyrex Shadow's slot.
Yeah, I think something that's really interesting now, right, is that Thundurus is able to just kind of do anything it wants now. Now that the Incineroar is off the field, Christopher kind of prioritizing, hey, if I just go for an Origin Pulse here, if this Incineroar doesn't fake out my own Kyogre, then it's already at a bad position, because at that point then I can let my Thundurus kind of run rampant, right? You can go for something like a Tailwind, allow your Kyogre to be faster if need be, or at least at that point to just do a lot of damage, right?
I just realized it was Psychic Terrain, right? So going for the Max Mindstorm was strategic so that Thundurus is rendered useless, since we know that Thundurus only has support moves, and the support moves work with Prankster. All the rest of the mons on Wonseok's side are grounded, so this could be a cool strategy. I didn't expect it like coming out when we saw it, but like when we think back through, yeah, I think this makes so much sense. And the Thunderous is then forced to switch out.
Yeah, right. I didn't even think of it. I'm like, well, it's not grounded, so it's fine. But all the other opponents are grounded, so it works out. Gastrodon switching out, though, for a Groudon. Kind of just stuck in here for a very short amount of time. Most importantly, though, getting the Sun up to help its partner Pokemon not take so much damage from something like an Origin Pulse. Kyogre going for a Protect this turn, though, so definitely showing that it wants to try and stall out something like another Max Mindstorm. But Max Mindstorm still does a good chunk of damage into this Kyogre. You are getting this threat off of the field early. Still no way to really mitigate the damage that the Zacian can kind of output at this point because there is no Incineroar. You haven't gotten off anything like a Will-O-Wisp, so Zacian can still go for something like a Behemoth Blade on this turn and do a bunch of damage, but it still has the threat of something like a Precipice Blade. It's kind of right at its heels as well.
This is like such a strange idea of going for the turn 1 Max Mindstorm, turn 2 Max Mindstorm in Psychic Terrain, but Christopher is playing very carefully and very patiently because he does have limited Dynamax options left. I do believe it is the Katana in the back, so going for that Protect on the Kyogre makes a lot of sense, you know, to stall out these Calyrex's max turns. But Calyrex actually goes for the Max Guard on its last turn here, not wanting to, you know, go down to both the Zacian and the Kyogre's double up attacks, and at the same time taking attention away from the Groudon. Groudon is now able to go for Precipice Blades. Oh, that was a miss on the Zacian. That's unfortunate.
Well, the Kyogre also missed, I believe, its own Precipice Blades onto the Groudon, or the Origin Pulse onto the Groudon as well. So this Precipice Blades, even though you miss on the Zacian, you at least are not taking a bunch of damage from an Origin Pulse, even in the Sun from the Kyogre on the opposite side of the field. At this point, too, like you said, if it is that Kartana in the back, Kartana's got a great opportunity to go for something like a Max Overgrowth here. Wonseok did not go for any sort of Max Phantasms to try and lower the defense on either side, just to try and maybe help its partner Groudon maybe get some big damage off. You at least have the opportunity now to go for a Will-O-Wisp into either of these two Pokemon, and it's going to be really problematic for both of them, especially because you're faster currently, because I don't think any sort of speed changes were made throughout the entire game. You know, nothing like a Thunder Wave from that Thunderous as well, even though we saw, I believe, an Eerie Impulse earlier on, and a Thunder Wave would have been a really nice way maybe to help slow down the Pokemon on the opposite side of the field and allow your Zacian to go first. Like you said, also, Precipice Blades is going to do a really nice chunk of damage onto both of these Pokemon right now. And also, I think looking at that Groudon, I think I saw that it does have 4 attacking moves, so there is a good chance, yeah, that it is that Assault Vest variant of the Groudon, which is really nice in front of a Kyogre, not super helpful in front of 2 big physical attackers like a Kartana and a Zacian.
Yeah, I think hindsight was really 2020 when you mentioned that the Calyrex could have went for the Max Phantasm instead. Yeah, but unfortunate that these turns just play out this way, and I think Wonseok really needs to hit that Will-O-Wisp in order to not let this Katana steamroll out of control, but he chooses to go for that Astral Barrage to go for damage, and it has really little damage into the Katana.
Yeah, it doesn't do a whole lot, right? But this this Behemoth Blade into the Groudon does well over 50%, plus a Max Overgrowth from this Kartana is going to be enough to pick up that knockout. Actually, yeah, it is enough. It looked really close for a second there. Able to get that knockout onto this Groudon. The grassy terrain as well will be helpful to pick up some of the HP that was lost during that Astral Barrage. I think had you gone for something like a Will-O-Wisp onto that Kartana, you may have been able to survive that Max Overgrowth. Not entirely sure just as of yet, but now with that Beast Boost up as well, this Kartana becomes really frustrating to deal with, especially for Wonseok, who I think only has something in the back that I don't think can do great damage to either one. You're still faster at the moment. Yeah, Gastrodon can come in and go for something maybe like an Earth Power, but it's going to take a Max Overgrowth, and that's just going to be the end of it, especially with a Beast Boost at this point. So unless you can get something like a critical hit from your Astral Barrage and maybe some extra super magic move here, I don't really know just as of yet. I think at this point, right, Wonseok is going to take a Max Overgrowth into his Gastrodon. It's going to be an easy one-hit knockout, that we saw that the Leaf Blade did so much without even having that Beast Boost as well. And then Calyrex is kind of in a weird position on its own. If it was holding something like a Focus Sash, it would already be broken, and Zacian could just go for another Behemoth Blade and get that knockout right away.
I'm not sure of my calcs here, but it does seem like this Katana is holding like the Assault Vest, so that's why like the Calyrex's Astral Barrage is not doing enough. Like, it could comfortably be a two-hit KO if it's not holding the assault vest here, and maybe that's what Wonseok was hoping for, but here comes another Astro Barrage, isn't able to take out both the Zacian and the Kyogre, and Christopher can just clean up here with this Beamer Blade into the Calyrex and that Max Overgrowth into the Gastrodon, but just overall so skillful play coming out from Christopher and understanding like the options he has. First of all, going for the Origin Toss to take out that Incineroar once and for all. Incineroar can't intimidate any of the physical attackers on the field now, and with Incineroar gone, then Katana's Dynamax can be activated, and at the same time like protecting the Kyogre and just allowing the Katana to come in for free with full health, able to Dynamax immediately. Yeah, it's just so perfect, and yeah, very well done from Christopher. I think like this game we know isn't the match point for Australia over South Korea, but like they were playing before the matches that we talked about just now with the Yveltal and Kyogres, but still, on stream here, being able to win for Australia, bringing the score up 4-2, just so amazing to see coming out from Christopher.
Yeah, it's really great to see. I think that Australia has done exactly what it needed to do against South Korea. It may not be a 3-3 into a final game for that for that doubleheader that we have next. That maybe, I know, for suspense purposes we may have been hoping for. But like you said, that was incredible play by Christopher, right? Because he knew his end game in every single in both of those two games, and he knew exactly what he needed to accomplish that. And by knowing that Incineroar had taunts, you know that is your biggest threat to take care of that next game, because it allows for your Thundurus to just kind of sit around and be more annoying to deal with. It may not even have to do anything, but just the threat of having the Thundurus on the field and going for something like an Airy Impulse or even like a Thunder Wave, if need be, would be able to probably stop something like that Calyrex from getting really, really difficult. And it puts that Calyrex at a position where it may not want to go for something like a Will-O-Wisp, because then it's, if you're trying to yawn again. And we saw a lot of kind of funky positions just with that sleep stuff, especially from Wonseok in that first game. And I think as well, I think Wonseok had the right idea of trying to get rid of that Kyogre early, but by getting rid of that Kyogre, you allow for the Kartana to come in, and by not going for something like a Will-O-Wisp, by going with that early Dynamax with your Calyrex Shadow Rider, then you're at least allowing for that Zacian and for the Kartana really to get boosted up in a way that really is not helpful for you. You could have had you gone for a Will-O-Wisp and a Parting Shot, then already you've put that Zacian in a position where it can't really do anything. You already would bring that Behemoth Blade back into, I think it was at least a 3-hit, maybe a 4-hit knockout onto that Calyrex Shadow Rider, instead of it just being a 2-hit knockout without any of those debuffs.
Overall, like, although Wonseok played very well with very cool ideas, I just admire Christopher's confidence when he makes these plays, right? And the way he's able to expertly use this Zacian, Kyogre, Whimsicott, and Thundurus team with that Shedinja. Shedinja didn't even need to come, but he actually used it like all 7 weeks now, and his record is now 6-1. That's just so amazing to see that consistency and that comfort when a player uses a team that he knows so well. From Wonseok's end, just a bit of a shout out. He was 4-0 going into this, playing every week of the World Cup as a manager. Very, very passionate player and someone who I respect a lot. And yeah, just unfortunate that South Korea can't repeat their top 4 performance, and really is going home, and very sad to see them go, really.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely a bummer, because they were a team that I consistently, and I will still continue to do this, tout their praises by how talented that roster is. It is a huge showing of Australia, though. Again, they really, I think, had a giant chip on their shoulder. They know how good of a team that they are, and they're able to prove it at this point in the World Cup. Nice thing for both of these teams, though, is they will still get a bye in next year's World Cup through that first round, because they have all gotten into this top 8. So there is still a boon to finishing in top 8 versus maybe top 4, which is really helpful to kind of move into next year, especially for scouting purposes against teams that may not have been able to make it in. Like Japan is going to be a big one that people will probably be scouting next year, as they did not make it into the top 8. However, we still have another match between Australia and South Korea, a great way to kind of send off the South Korean team and see the talent of a lot of more of these trainers for both sides. So please do not go anywhere. After this quick break, we will be right back.